When I stand before you tonight, I want you to know that I do not speak merely from the realm of theories or from the sterile ground of academic psychology. I speak as one who has walked through many nights of the soul, who has witnessed the human spirit collapse under its own shadow and rise again bearing an unseen treasure. There are truths which cannot be taught in classrooms, truths which are not printed in books but etched upon the fibers of your very being. These truths are won through suffering, and they become the secret inheritance of those who dare to endure. And it is here that the empath, the one who feels the world not only with their hands but with their innermost blood, discovers the secret gift that only darkness can bestow. To be an empath is to carry a nervous system that vibrates with the faintest tremor of another's pain. It is to awaken in the morning already carrying dreams that are not your own, to walk into a room and suddenly feel the atmosphere as if it were another skin wrapping around you. For many, this sensitivity feels like a curse, a perpetual vulnerability to storms that are not theirs. Yet the paradox of existence is that the very wound through which life pierces you is also the aperture through which meaning flows. For the empath, walking through darkness does not simply mean encountering their own shadow. It means being dragged into the abyss of others, drowning in seas of grief, betrayal, despair, until they no longer know what belongs to them and what belongs to the collective. The danger is great. The soul can lose itself in this ocean. But when one does not flee, when one surrenders to the dark passage rather than resisting it, a transformation occurs that is more valuable than any philosophy I could offer you. You see, in the mythic imagination, all gifts come from descent. Prometheus must descend to steal fire from the gods. Orpheus must descend into Hades for his beloved. Even Christ descends into hell before resurrection. The empath too must descend, because the treasure that awaits them cannot be bought in the light of the market but only discovered in the caves of suffering. What is this secret gift? It is the capacity to see not only the pain of others but the archetypal patterns behind the pain, to witness in the trembling of one individual the eternal story of the collective soul. After walking through darkness, the empath is no longer merely a sponge absorbing. They become an alchemist who can transmute pain into meaning, chaos into order, despair into symbol. They awaken to an ancient truth that suffering, when embraced consciously, transforms. I have seen this countless times in my work with patients. A woman overwhelmed by the moods of her family, crushed beneath their projections, enters my office broken. She believes herself weak, for she cannot withstand the atmosphere of discord without collapsing. But as we trace the roots of her suffering, we discover that her weakness is in fact a sacred instrument. She carries antennae so finely tuned that they can perceive even the unconscious undercurrents of those around her. At first this instrument torments her, for she does not know how to use it. But when she learns to gaze upon the darkness, to not recoil from the grotesque figures of the unconscious, she begins to perceive something astonishing. She sees what others cannot see. She notices the archetype of the wounded father moving in her husband's anger. She recognizes the abandoned child in her daughter's rebellion, and suddenly her burden becomes her gift, for she can hold the pattern, not just the pain. This, my friends, is vision born of descent. But understand this. The journey through darkness is not romantic. It is not a soft candlelit retreat. It is a tearing apart of illusions, a confrontation with chaos. For the empath, the temptation is always to escape into light prematurely, to deny the horror they feel, to drown their senses in distractions, substances, or superficial kindness. Yet the psyche is ruthless in her demands. She will not release the gift until the individual has endured the night fully. You must walk with the ghosts until you recognize them as your own. You must sit with betrayal until it ceases to be merely personal and becomes universal. Then, and only then, does the alchemy occur. The empath emerges not as a victim of feeling, but as a seer of soul. Think of the dream world. Many of you have awakened from dreams, where you are pursued by shadowy figures, animals, or hostile strangers. First you recoil, but if you dare to turn and face them, if you dare to ask what they want, you discover that these frightening images are messengers of the unconscious. They are not there to destroy you, but to deliver a hidden message. So it is with the empath's descent into darkness. The emotions of others, the despair that floods you, are not there to drown you, but to awaken you to what is hidden beneath the surface. Every tear you feel is not simply water. It is a symbolic river leading you into the underworld where truth resides. The gift then is this. After walking through darkness, the empath no longer identifies blindly with every pain. They learn discernment. They realize that what they feel is not random. It is archetypal. They begin to recognize when they are carrying the shadow of another, when they are embodying the myth of the sacrificed one, when they are being invited to enact the role of the healer. With this awareness, their sensitivity becomes mastery. They are no longer overwhelmed by every emotion, for they know that each wave is part of a larger ocean, and within this ocean, they learn to navigate, to swim, even to guide others through the storm. But this transformation requires courage of the rarest kind. For the empath, courage does not look like the hero's sword. It looks like staying in the silence of a room filled with despair and not fleeing. It looks like allowing one's heart to be broken again and again until the ego finally understands that it cannot control life. In that surrender, a space opens, and in that space, the archetypal gift is born. I tell you, there is no spiritual awakening without dissent. There is no real compassion without wounds. There is no gift of empathy without first being crucified by sensitivity. Some of you here know what I speak of, because you have lived it. You have been through betrayals that shattered you. You have felt despair so deep it seemed endless. And yet something in you refused to die. That something is the seed of your gift. The more you suffer consciously, the more the walls between yourself and others dissolve, and the more you begin to see with eyes that are not merely your own. This is why empaths, after surviving darkness, often radiate a presence that heals without words. Their very being becomes a mirror in which others recognize their own humanity. Not because the empath has escaped suffering, but because they have integrated it, transfigured it, allowed it to become a vessel of wisdom. And yet, I must also warn you, if the empath refuses this descent, if they remain forever a victim of others' shadows without integrating them, the gift is lost. They become sick, anxious, depressed. Even the psyche punishes avoidance with suffering. Only by entering consciously into the darkness can the empath emerge with treasure. In this, the empath's journey mirrors the alchemical process. First there is nigredo, the blackening, when all light is extinguished, when despair seems total. Then comes albedo, the whitening, as the soul begins to perceive patterns in the chaos. Finally rubedo, the reddening, when the stone is complete and the individual emerges transformed. This is not fantasy but psychological reality. Every empath who has walked through darkness knows this alchemy in their bones. The secret gift, therefore, is not simply sensitivity. It is wisdom born of wounds. It is vision born of despair. It is the ability to see beyond the mask of individuals into the archetypal currents shaping their lives. It is the capacity to hold darkness without collapsing, to witness pain without drowning, to speak truth where others remain silent. This gift is not glamorous. It does not win applause, but it is sacred. It is what the world most desperately needs, and only those who have endured can carry it. I tell you this not to romanticize your suffering, but to dignify it, not despise your sensitivity, not curse your nights of despair. They are shaping you into something rare, something necessary. If you are walking through darkness now, remember, the gift is waiting. Trust the process of descent. Trust the archetypes that guide you. Trust that the night does not last forever, and that when dawn comes, you will rise not as you were, but as one who has seen the face of the soul. I want you to imagine yourself standing at the threshold of a cave. Behind you lies the world of appearances, where people smile though their hearts are broken, where conversations remain polite, though the undercurrents of hatred and envy run strong, where you have often felt the sting of what is unspoken but deeply present. Before you lies the cave, dark and unknown, echoing with whispers that chill the bone. Most people turn away from such a threshold. They distract themselves. They rush into work. They bury their pain in noise. But the empath cannot escape so easily, for the cave is not outside them, it is inside. The empath carries the threshold in their chest, in their very nervous system. To deny it is to live torn apart. To enter it is to risk losing everything, and yet to gain a treasure beyond all comprehension. The empath's journey through darkness is one of paradox. They are both the healer and the wounded, the mirror and the one shattered by reflection. At first they do not know this. They believe themselves cursed, condemned to forever feel what is not theirs. They beg the heavens to take it away, to make them like others who can pass through life untouched by the grief of strangers. But the psyche does not work according to our conscious wishes. It is guided by archetypal necessity. The empath has been chosen to walk through the valley of shadows, not because they are weak, but because their soul has been attuned to carry mysteries that others cannot bear. And so the empath descends. They enter relationships that wound them. They give themselves to causes that drain them. They are betrayed again and again until the naivety of their innocence is shattered like glass. Each betrayal pushes them deeper into the underworld. They dream of drowning, of suffocation, of wandering in labyrinths. These dreams are not mere fantasies. They are symbolic enactments of the soul's journey. The empath's consciousness is being stretched, torn apart, widened to hold contradictions that ordinary minds cannot contain. And in this tearing, something ancient is being born. The darkness does not spare them. They experience despair that feels endless, nights without sleep, days where they cannot distinguish between their own grief and that of another. They feel madness licking at the edges of their mind. Many collapse here, clinging to substances or to illusions that numb the unbearable weight. But for those who persist, who let the darkness speak, a strange metamorphosis occurs. They begin to perceive patterns. They notice that their own pain echoes the pain of countless others. They see in their betrayal the archetype of Judas, in their abandonment the myth of Orpheus, in their despair the crucifixion itself. They begin to recognize that what they suffer is not theirs alone. It belongs to the human story. And at this recognition, the door opens. The secret gift begins to take shape. This gift is not immunity. It does not erase suffering. It is vision. Vision that pierces through masks. Vision that reads the symbols of the soul. Vision that sees beyond appearances into essence. The empath who has endured darkness becomes like a dream interpreter for life itself. They can look upon a person consumed by rage and see the wounded child hidden beneath. They can listen to silence and hear the scream that is buried there. They can walk into a room and discern the hidden archetype that governs its atmosphere. And this vision, though it costs everything, is what transforms them from victim to vessel. But do not think this gift makes life easier. In some ways, it makes life more demanding. For to see truth is to carry responsibility. The empath who has awakened cannot go back to blindness. They cannot participate in the trivialities that others mistake for reality. They are called to hold what is heavy, to witness what is denied, to stand as mirrors when the world would rather not see itself. Yet here lies the paradox again. In accepting this burden, they find a strange freedom. No longer are they tossed about by every wave of feeling. They become the still point in the storm. Their heart remains open, but their center is rooted in the depths. They know who they are. They know what they carry. And because they have walked through darkness, they are not afraid of shadows. Let me tell you of a man I once treated. He was an empath without knowing the word. He absorbed the bitterness of his father, the despair of his mother, the expectations of his community. For years, he lived as a reflection of others, until one day he collapsed in what the world calls a breakdown. He could not work. He could not eat. He was consumed by nightmares of drowning. Society told him he was ill, and indeed his suffering was immense. But as we worked together, it became clear that his breakdown was a breakthrough in disguise. His psyche was forcing him into the underworld, into the depth he had avoided. There in the darkness he encountered visions, archetypal images that terrified and yet fascinated him. Dragons, wounded children, crucifixions, floods. Slowly he began to realize that his suffering was not madness but initiation. He was being taught the language of symbols. Years later he emerged, not cured in the superficial sense, but transformed. He became a healer, not by choice, but by necessity, for he could not help but see the hidden wounds of those around him. His gift had been forged in darkness, and it was real. The empath's gift is secret, because it cannot be explained to those who have not suffered. Words cannot convey it fully. It is known only through the bone, through the blood, through nights when you are certain you will not survive, and yet somehow you do. It is the silent knowledge that you can look into the abyss and not be destroyed. It is the knowing that compassion is not softness but strength, not sentimentality, but the courage to bear what others cannot. And when you carry this gift, you walk differently. The world senses it. People come to you not even knowing why, drawn by the resonance of your soul. They feel seen in ways they have never felt before. They feel safe, because you do not flinch at their darkness. And this is the greatest miracle. The empath who has endured becomes a living sanctuary. Yet I must emphasize again, the danger remains. For to carry such vision is also to carry temptation. The empath may become inflated, believing themselves savior of the world, or they may collapse into martyrdom, sacrificing themselves endlessly. Both are distortions. The true gift does not make one superior. It makes one deeply human. It does not call for endless self-destruction but for balance, for the ability to hold both self and other in equal regard. The empath who truly integrates their gift learns to say yes and no with equal clarity. They know when to give and when to withdraw. They understand that to be a vessel of healing, they must also guard their own flame. Without boundaries, the gift is corrupted. With boundaries, it shines. Think of the archetype of the wounded healer, Chiron. He was immortal yet wounded by a poison that never healed. His suffering did not end, but it gave him the power to heal others. So it is with the empath. The wound remains in some form. Sensitivity never vanishes, but it is precisely through this wound that healing flows. The empath becomes a bridge between darkness and light, between unconscious and conscious, between suffering and meaning. And the bridge is sacred because it is made of flesh, of real experience, of night survived. So if you ask me what the secret gift is, I tell you this. It is the capacity to endure the reality of existence without fleeing, and to transmute what is unbearable into vision, compassion, and meaning. It is not a gift that can be taught. It cannot be purchased. It is not given to all. It is won only by those who dare to walk through their own darkness fully, and once received, it becomes a light for others. Not a light that blinds, but a gentle flame that warms. The empath who has survived does not shout their wisdom. They embody it. Their presence itself becomes the teaching. My friends, if you are in the midst of your descent, if you feel that the darkness has swallowed you whole, I urge you, do not despair. Trust that the very weight that threatens to crush you is shaping you into something that cannot be destroyed. Trust that your suffering, unbearable as it is the forge of your gift. Trust that the night, though long, does not last forever, and when dawn comes, you will not only rise, you will carry within you a secret treasure, the gift of one who has seen the abyss, and returned to tell the tale. The deeper we go into this descent, the more we realize that darkness itself is not an enemy, but a teacher. It is the primordial womb in which transformation is conceived. For the empath, walking through darkness means becoming intimate with chaos, with ambiguity, with the unsettling realization that the boundary between self and other is fluid, porous, sometimes non-existent. This dissolution is terrifying, for the ego clings desperately to identity. But when the empath allows themselves to be dissolved, when they surrender to the current of collective pain, they touch something greater than the personal. They encounter the collective unconscious, the vast reservoir of humanity's archetypal experiences. And in that encounter, the empath learns that what they suffer is not madness, but participation in an ancient rhythm. Let us not forget that all myths are born of this descent. Shaman, before becoming healer of the tribe, must first endure dismemberment. Visions, they are torn apart by spirits, devoured, scattered to the winds, only to be reassembled with new sight. The empath too undergoes a symbolic dismemberment. Their psyche is pulled apart by conflicting emotions, their identity shredded by carrying too much. This tearing apart is necessary, for only by losing the old self can a new self emerge, one capable of bearing the archetypal currents without annihilation. To walk through darkness is to be unmade and remade, to die and to be reborn. And here lies the secret gift. When the empath returns from darkness, they carry with them not only sensitivity but also depth. They no longer merely feel emotions as waves crashing upon them. They recognize these waves as emanations of archetypes. Anger is not only anger, it is the face of Mars. the war god demanding to be acknowledged. Grief is not only grief. It is the mourning of Isis for Osiris, the eternal lament of the Great Mother for a lost child. Love is not only love. It is a cosmic force binding opposites together. The empath who has endured darkness becomes fluent in this symbolic language. They see through the surface of life into its mythic core, and this vision, though hard-won, is a treasure of immeasurable worth. Yet the empath's transformation does not end in vision alone. Vision must be embodied. To see truth without living it is to remain in illusion. Thus, the empath once reborn begins to embody a new way of being. They cultivate boundaries not out of fear but out of wisdom. They practice compassion not as sentimentality but as grounded presence. They hold the pain of others not as their own burden but as a reflection of the shared human story. In this way, the empath becomes a vessel not of chaos but of coherence. They radiate a calmness that others sense instinctively, for their energy no longer fluctuates wildly with every emotional tide. They have found their root in the depths. But let me be clear. This embodiment is a lifelong practice. The empath must continually walk the line between openness and protection, between service and self-care, between descent and return. There is no final arrival, no permanent state of perfection. The gift remains alive only through continual dialogue with the unconscious. Dreams must be listened to, symbols must be honored, shadows must be faced anew. The empath who forgets this becomes stagnant, inflated, or overwhelmed once again. The darkness must be revisited, not as punishment but as nourishment, for it is in the underworld that the gift renews itself. And what of love for the empath? Love is both the greatest danger and the greatest salvation. Before descent, love often appears as self-sacrifice, as giving endlessly in the hope of being accepted. This love wounds, for it is entangled with shadow projections, with the desperate desire to heal others, while ignoring one's own wound. But after walking through darkness, love transforms. It becomes no longer a transaction but a recognition. The empath sees the other not as someone to save, but as a mirror of the archetypal human condition. They love not by rescuing but by witnessing, not by losing themselves, but by standing firmly in care of their own soul. This is the mature love born of descent, a love that heals not by force but by presence. You may ask, what does it mean to witness rather than rescue? It means standing in the presence of another's pain without trying to erase it. It means allowing grief to be grief, anger to be anger, despair to be despair, without rushing to fix, soothe, or deny. This witnessing is powerful because it affirms the reality of the other soul. It says, I see you, I hear you, I honor what you carry. And in this act of seeing, transformation occurs naturally, without coercion. The empath, who has endured darkness, can offer this kind of love because they have learned to offer it first to themselves. They have sat with their own wounds without fleeing. They have borne their own despair without rejection. And so when they look upon another, they can offer the same. There is another aspect to the empath's gift that must be spoken. It is the ability to dream not only for themselves but for the collective. Many empaths experience dreams that feel larger than life. Dreams of catastrophes, wars, floods, or revelations. These are not personal fantasies but collective archetypal dreams, messages from the unconscious of humanity itself. After walking through darkness, the empath learns to recognize these dreams for what they are, not predictions in a literal sense, but symbolic commentaries on the state of the collective soul. In this way, the empath becomes not only a healer of individuals, but also a seer of culture. They can sense when society is heading toward destruction, when an archetype is being neglected, when a shadow is swelling to dangerous proportions. This role is heavy, for the world rarely wants to hear such truths, and yet it is necessary. Without such visionaries, societies fall asleep, blind to their own descent into shadow. You might notice that those who have truly endured darkness often carry a strange humor, a lightness amidst their gravity. This too is part of the gift. For when one has seen the abyss and survived, one no longer takes the trivialities of life so seriously. They recognize the absurdity of ego games, the futility of endless striving, and so they laugh, not cynically, but with a freedom that comes from knowing that even in darkness, life is still sacred. This humor is healing, for it disarms fear. It is a reminder that the human journey, though filled with suffering, is also filled with wonder, with beauty, with paradox. The empath who embodies this humor becomes a light in the darkness, not by denying pain, but by carrying it lightly. And now I must return to the most essential truth. The empath's gift is not given for themselves alone. It is given for the world. After walking through darkness, the empath becomes a vessel through which the collective unconscious speaks. Their sensitivity, once a curse, becomes a channel. They feel what others repress. They name what others deny. They embody what others project. In doing so, they help bring the unconscious to light. This is no small task. It is the work of integration, the work of healing not only personal wounds but cultural ones. The empath, therefore, is a kind of modern shaman, carrying messages from the underworld into the daylight of consciousness. And like all shamans, their gift is both blessing and burden. But without them, humanity would remain blind to its own soul. So if you are here listening, and you feel that you are one of these empaths, know this: your suffering has meaning. Your descent is not in vain. The darkness you endure is the forge of your gift. And though you may feel alone, you are part of an ancient lineage of souls who have walked this path before you. The shamans, the prophets, the mystics, the healers. They too felt overwhelmed. They too doubted their sanity. And yet they endured. They carried the secret gift into the world. And now it is your turn. As the empath emerges from this long pilgrimage through the underworld, they carry within them a paradoxical awareness. Life is both unbearably fragile and infinitely resilient. They have touched despair, and so they know how quickly light can vanish. They have also touched renewal, and so they know that even in the blackest night, a hidden seed is germinating. This double vision is the essence of the gift. It does not eliminate suffering. It deepens it, dignifies it, transforms it into meaning. And this meaning is not abstract. It is lived, embodied, breathed with every step. What fascinates me is that those who have endured darkness often no longer fear death in the same way. They know by experience that the ego's death is not the end. They have died many times, through heartbreak, through loss, through despair, and each time something larger within them has risen. So when physical death approaches, they greet it not as annihilation, but as another transformation, another descent into mystery. The empath's intimacy with suffering has made them intimate with eternity. They feel in their very bones that life is not extinguished, but transfigured. This trust cannot be taught in schools or forced by belief. It comes only through walking the path yourself. And yet the empath remains human, vulnerable, sometimes weary. The gift does not erase their need for rest, for solitude, for protection. If anything, it increases it. For to carry such sensitivity is to require rhythms of retreat, times of silence where the soul can cleanse itself of collective residue. The empath must learn to honor these rhythms, to withdraw, not out of selfishness, but out of necessity. Without retreat, the gift burns them out. With retreat, the gift is renewed. This is why many empaths are drawn to nature, to solitude, to the sea, to the forest. These places hold the silence in which their own depths can breathe again. And here we encounter the final shape of the secret gift. It is not only vision, not only compassion, not only wisdom, it is presence. The empath who has walked through darkness becomes a presence in which others feel safe to be themselves. They need not say much. They need not perform miracles. Their very being communicates, I have been where you are. I have felt the unbearable and survived. You are not alone. And in that silent communication, healing takes place. This is why people are drawn to such individuals without even knowing why. It is not technique, not knowledge, not charisma. It is presence. The presence of one who has embraced their own shadow and therefore does not fear yours. Presence is the rarest and most powerful gift in our age of noise. For in presence, alarms fall away. Presence does not seek to impress or to dominate. It simply is. And in its simplicity, it restores. The empath who carries this presence is like a quiet fire burning in the night. Those who come near feel warmed, not because the empath has taken their pain away, but because they no longer feel ashamed of it. They see that their darkness too belongs to the human story, and that realization is itself healing. This, my friends, is what the world desperately needs. Not more noise, not more dogma, not more frantic striving. It needs presence. It needs souls who have walked through darkness and emerged with vision, compassion, and depth. It needs empaths who have transmuted their wound into wisdom, for only such souls can stand against the tide of unconsciousness that threatens to engulf us. Only such souls can remind humanity of its own depths. And so I say to you, if you find yourself cursed with sensitivity, if you feel crushed by the weight of emotions not your own, do not despise your path. Do not imagine that you are weak or broken. You are being initiated. You are being taken apart so that you may be remade. You are being led into darkness, not to be destroyed, but to discover the secret gift that awaits there. Trust this. Endure this. And when you emerge, you will not only know yourself, you will carry a presence that heals without words. But remember, the gift is not static. It must be tended like a flame. It can flicker. It can grow dim if neglected. Therefore, care for yourself as you care for others. Honor your own boundaries as sacred. Listen to your dreams, for they are the language of your soul. Return to solitude often, for it cleanses you of what is not yours. And above all, do not forget that your gift is not yours alone. It belongs to the world. It is the world speaking through you, feeling through you, seeking to heal itself through you. To deny it is to betray not only yourself but the collective. To embrace it is to serve life itself. In the end, this is the secret gift every empath gains after walking through darkness. The ability to become a living bridge between the unconscious and the conscious, between suffering and meaning, between shadow and light. It is a gift born not of ease but of agony, not of avoidance but of courage. And it is the gift that makes life, even in its darkest hours, worth living. So walk bravely, my friends. Walk into your darkness without fear. Walk into your shadows without shame. For what awaits you there is not destruction, but transformation. And when you return, the world will be different because you will be different. You will have become the gift itself.